ever deeper we head. And now it's time to start into Season 5. Come with me as I continue to watch through the Clone Wars for the first time. Well, hello there. My name's Jeremy and welcome back to Freeform Disney, where I talk about all aspects of Disney, from the animated movies to the theme parks to Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, and the TV shows, and everything else in between. And that is why it's Freeform. And keep coming back every day for new daily content. If you're not subscribed yet, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Welcome back once again. This time, it's time for a season full of 4-part arcs. At least it looks that way so far. And that makes this an interesting season, so let's dive on in. We start off with an Onderon Arc, and the episode of A War on Two Fronts. So apparently we're headed over to Onderon, which has been captured by the Separatists, except, well, no, really, they were captured by the Separatists. I guess they joined the Separatists at the beginning of the war, or right before the war started. So really, this isn't part of the war, it's just a planet that chose a different direction. Except, well, maybe we disagree and we've got a bit of a civil war situation going on there. At any rate, definitely a question, but hey, we'll make sure that the Separatists look like the bad guys here. Because they are going to use droids to occupy the cities. Dun dun dun. And a bad king on the planet too. Can't have those Separatists looking like good guys, potentially. Anyway. So we start off with the Jedi Council over there, and my first reaction, hey, is that Lux? It is. I admit, that was a lot quicker than I expected to see him, and I figured we'd have to wait at least late into Season 5, maybe into Season 6 to see him again. But hey, that's a nice touch. Then the Jedi Council has this whole debate on whether to get involved or not, and they're busy telling Anakin that what he's proposing is terrorism. Not quite clear whether it was or not. Anakin talked about soft targets. I'm not sure for sure if he meant civilian targets or not with that. Hard to say. If he did, well then yes. And Yoda's got this big line about how, no, it means to an end fear cannot be. That they have to stop those who spread terror. Well, you would think that definitely sounds like the Jedi way. And heck, Obi-Wan's got this line about, hey, funding rebels to overthrow a legitimate government puts innocent lives at risk, and that's not how we conduct war. And, well, then they choose to go ahead and overthrow a legitimate government anyway. Because, hey, Jedi morals, we're bending those left and right because we're in a war, and we want to win. Yeah. But at least we minimize collateral damage by just using arms that mainly affect droids. So what do? In the end, we say, hey, we're going to go send some advisors there. And we'll go train them how to go conduct their war. Man, you guys are good at justification for your actions, aren't you? Yeah. Ever deeper down the rabbit hole the Jedi go. Oh, hey, and before we go too much further, we're in Season 5 now, and I've got to say the visuals do seem even better still. Seems to be a recurring theme that the visuals do get better each season. Still never as big a change as Season 1 to 2 was. But in this time, I noticed it in some of the colors, it seems, and say the shades in the dark spots. Well, anyway, off we go, and Obi-Wan, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex are all headed off to Onderon to go train the rebels. And who do we got? Well, we've got Steela, we've got good old Lux that we already saw before, and we've got Saw Gerrera, a much younger Saw Gerrera than the one I got to know over in Rogue One where Forrest Whitaker was playing him. Now, that said, he definitely seems to be a younger version of him, so nicely done on the show. I definitely buy the connection between them. So Onderon is the home of Lux Bonteri, and, well, his mother was a senator for good old Onderon. So this is what we knew of then, although, dang, the way it's oppressed now does not seem at all like the impression we got when we were talking with good old Lux and his mother back the other season. Then we get into this whole interesting piece. We've got Ahsoka with a bit of jealousy because guess what? It looks like it's Steela and Lux. And we go a little bit on this. Not a super ton, but certainly, it matters. Which would really be an odd thing because back to Jedi and whether they're allowed to have romantic relationships in the first place gets a little messy. Well, anyway, we get to go ahead and see some training on fighting droids, the typical kind of thing you'd expect in this thing. And hey, well, Lux really sucks at fighting. He's a politician, not a fighter. Sounds almost like a McCoy joke right there. I'm a politician, not a fighter. If only we were a doctor, not a politician, right? Well, anyway, on we go. We see all those cool droid poppers being used left and right. Really makes you wonder why we don't use a ton more droid poppers. I've got to assume they're more expensive to fight with than conventional weapons. Just considering how the Separatists mainly use droids, it would make sense to use more of these, and they're quite effective. That's my guess. I'm sure there's a lore answer somewhere in there as to why they're not used more. Well, so what ends up happening? Well, guess what? One of the probe droids gets sent out and it finds them, and hey, they're in the middle of their training sequence. Boom! Off comes a small droid detachment to go fight them. And I must say, it would have been nice if they'd kept some kind of, perimeter defense and kind of alert system ahead of time. That would have been nice. Now, of course, they end up winning the battle, although the Jedi were only defending, largely speaking, which is what they decided they had to do because they weren't going to actively fight offensively. Of course, if you're defending, you're definitely partaking in the fight. Most assuredly you are. And we get to see the payoff for Saw and Lux, so they succeed this time where they failed earlier in the episode. Now, they're going to head on into the capital city, which is named Isis. And this is kind of our end of the episode. We just see them head on in and, well, hey, those droids, really dumb. It's easy to get past them. Saw Gerrera commented it. And those creatures are riding, that horse-like creatures, those are pretty cool right there. So this was a good part one. It definitely set up for what comes next in the arc. It very much felt like that too. And I'm looking forward to it here. Certainly that was my thought at the time when I just finished the episode. I will say, there are very, very few rebels there that you're helping out. Kind of expected a rebel group to be a bit larger than that, or multiple cells or something, but that's okay. Back to scale issues that can be tricky to work with. Onward we head to Frontrunners, the next episode in the arc. So the rebels are only attacking droids, but nevertheless the public fear is certainly increasing, even if there haven't been any civilian casualties in the whole thing. Although it would have been a nice touch if there actually ended up being a civilian casualty or two in there, just talking about the horrors of war and what really happens in all of this, especially to see how everyone dealt with that problem. Well, and then we go see our king, and he's this Roman-like king, and how we make him appear, and his big palace and everything else, and we get to see the ex-king too, who has this nice line that, hey, it's up to the king to embrace, bend, or break the will of the people. Kind of get the opinion that the ex-king was more about that whole embracing the will of the people kind of thing, whereas our current guy, all about breaking the will of the people. Your typical setup here. And next time, we'll have the king who's all about bending the will of the people. Well, no, not here. Now I have to say, I definitely had the question here, why a droid occupation? The planet willingly joined the Separatists, heck, before the war even started. It seems odd. These rebels are a really small group. Their own military, their King's Guard, and all the rest of that. Shouldn't that be able to handle a few rebels? Yeah, it just doesn't add up for me. I feel like there's something else that's just not being talked about. Either that or we're making the Separatists / the king an idiot and bringing droids in just to go exacerbate the situation. Which, hey, that certainly could be the case. After all, we made our king not the brightest guy in the world anyway. Okay, so we head over to the rebels who are having this debrief session because, hey, the Jedi are busy supplying all their credits and other supplies at the moment. But they're going to have to go take care and fend for themselves at some point. We've got to cut them loose to make sure that this whole project works. And apparently the rebels think that the people are fearful because they think that the rebels will fail. Therefore, they decide they're going to go take out a giant target of the Central Power Facility, which will also hurt the whole droid army because droids still need to recharge every so often, so hey. Now, Ahsoka's going to get left on the planet while Obi-Wan, Anakin, Rex, the rest, they're all leaving. So just Ahsoka left do any last advising. They go ahead and take over a tank because they need that to go blow up the actual power station. Use their own weapons against him, right? And hey, they succeed. Especially because Steela actually pops on in there and knows how to rewire the tank to take control of it. Now, what's interesting, Ahsoka, while she was defending over there outside the central power station, she was only using one lightsaber. I thought that was intriguing. Instead of her normal double lightsaber moves, she's just got the one. I'm just wondering if maybe that's just to make it so she blends in more with who knows who as a Jedi? Not sure. Interesting choice right there nonetheless. And hey, of course they have success. Kaboom! Out goes the power station. Surprise, surprise. Well, we have this whole after party, and hey, guess what? Our Jedi who left the planet are there by hologram. So is Rex. And we got this little moment between Anakin and Ahsoka where Anakin was able to go ahead and help talk about Ahsoka's jealousy of Steela, even if we didn't quite directly talk about it. Anakin, of all people, would be able to recognize what's going on. A little bit of, I understand. Yes, I really do. But try to remember, always put purpose ahead of your feelings. Good words to live by there, Annie. Sadly, not ones he followed either when it came to it in the end. I think Ahsoka does a much better job of following those instructions than Anakin did, that's for sure. Or at least, all through this arc anyway. Oh, so that makes it time to rally the people now, and hey, clearly there's going to be a conflict over which of them is the leader for the people to rally behind. So we've got 3 potential people. Is it going to be Saw? Is it going to be Lux? Or hey, maybe Steela? Saw is all about building momentum and continuing the attacks. Lux is all about reassuring the people because too much disruption could alienate them. And Steela says, let's work on both and make sure to recruit more people. Ding, 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 ding. Steela gets volunteered and becomes the leader of the rebels. Which upsets Saw, who we now find out is her brother. So it's Steela Guerrera. On one other piece, we do find out that, hey, the good old separatist with Dooku is sending a new general to go ahead and take over things on Onderon. General Droid Guy Kalani. So yeah, this was an okay enough episode. It wasn't quite as strong as I would have liked. But hey, there was a lot of good stuff in here too. Now I've got to say, at this point I'm going, will Steela die? It seems like what to expect story-wise, or for her to get sidelined somehow. Because she is the glue that holds everything together, and if she were to die or get sidelined, then a conflict between Lux and Saw could really boil over. And so I was definitely expecting that at this point. Now, that may not quite be what happens, but it was my expectation. And next we move into the Soft War, the next episode. And hey, right off the bat, I've got to say, I always love when a show or a movie or whatever uses a few good guys hidden under cloaks when they're the only ones in cloaks at all and nobody else is using them. You're really hidden there. Hey, look at these super suspicious people in cloaks. And hey, again, this is not exactly a Clone Wars fault per se. Now, they didn't have to make the choice to do it too, but it gets done a lot. We start out with a good old big action piece, and then we get to something a little more interesting. Don't get me wrong, the action's fun. But we get a discussion with the king and his advisors. So we see General Tandon, as well as General Kalani there. And General Tandon correctly surmises that only droids have been attacked during this so far, and that deploying the royal militia to control the city might work and get the rebels to negotiate because they won't want to target humans. Meanwhile, General Kalani the droid argues that there may be sympathizers within the militia and this would be a horrible idea. Off the bat, we can make a quick guess as to which option would have been better here. Well, the king is unwilling to lead to the possibility of negotiation, and he says something like, they fear diplomacy and embrace mayhem. I gotta say, if you think they fear diplomacy and embrace mayhem, wouldn't you want to negotiate with them? Because after all, they fear that negotiation? That way you're playing to their weaknesses, not their strengths? You are not the brightest cookie, are you, bud? Well, anyway, the king, super paranoid too. He decides that the X-King has to be behind everything. So, therefore, he's going to go ahead and execute that X-King, claiming that he's behind the attacks. Now, this is clearly a trap for our good old rebels, and Steela decides that they are going to try to rescue him publicly at the execution, even though they know it's a trap. That said, Saw, decides to go take matters into his own hands and leaves, regardless of everybody's attempts to get him not to go do something rash. Well, he does. So Saw goes on off to the palace, and he gets his way on in and heads on up to the X-King. We get an interesting little talk between them, too. We find out the king really feels this was kind of all his own fault for what's going on. That he thinks he opened the door, it's why the separatists ended up coming. he ended up getting the choice of joining the Republic or the Confederacy, but he, as king, saw both clearly as corrupt. But instead of choosing a side before one was chosen for Onderon, he ended up choosing neither side. And that led to, well, the new king and the problems that ended up happening afterward. Well, anyway, they try to get out, but they get caught by a one-way shield. Oh, Saw, you did not see that one coming. Ooh. Back to rash action, right? Well, we get this little talking over in the Rebels, and, well, we find out things are a little messy. There's some more Lux and Steela moments in there. Ahsoka having some issues with feeling responsible for the Rebels, but also getting told how they need to become self-reliant and having to really come to terms with that. And then we get to finding out that Saw got captured, and, well, Ahsoka says she can't be involved in the rescue. And Steela, having to make the tough call, decides that they can only save the king. They've got to go ahead and leave Saw behind. They just don't have the forces to do both. Okay, how about some more good discussions, though? So good old General Tannen versus General Kalani. And this is, well, Kalani's just been torturing Saw. I mean, we've got this piece on Tannen talking to him about, hey, guess what? You can control the people of Onderon, but you won't sustain it against their will. So just going and killing people left and right or torturing them is just not the right way to go ahead and do it. And dang, Kingy, if you had been listening to General Tannen here, this whole deal would have gone a very different direction. And General Tannen isn't done because now we get this whole discussion between General Tannen and Saw. And really, this gets into why General Tannen is working with the king as he is currently. And we get a little deeper into Saw, too, with this. Then we head on to the rescue. And hey, this rescue, I gotta say, seems really super easy at first. They wait until the very last moment to go ahead and save the ex-king. Frankly, because they waited so incredibly late for dramatic reasons for the episode, they're pretty damn lucky the ex-king just didn't get executed accidentally before they were able to stop it. I mean, dang. Now, while it's done for super dramatic purposes to wait till the absolute last second, I gotta say it knocks me out of it a little because it's so bloody unrealistic. Well, anyway, they head on in and they start their rescue, and when they start leaving, and one of their people dies, because we've got to at least have a casualty in there. And apparently then a few super battle droids are enough to stop them. I think they'd be ready for at least that much, considering everything they've been going through before. At the same time, I have to say, as the good old king and separatists here, you expect them to come. You know this is something you're making as a trap, and that's the best defense you got is a few super battle droids? Dang, that is hardly impressive. I expected a way bigger trap that they certainly shouldn't have had any good right to be able to get out of. And then there were some other odd choices. When they were going ahead and working their way out, why didn't the rebels capture the current king? He was right there. You walked past him. This is the current king. Capture him. I mean, yes, rescue is good too, but why not capture him? Or heck, why not destroy the droid general? Why not kill him while you're at it? Meanwhile, Ahsoka's over in the audience just watching this going, wow, you people are really making bad choices, aren't you? Okay, I have no idea if that's what she was thinking, but yeah. So anywho, they're looking like they're going to get captured, so how the heck do we get out of this? Well, because our good human general, General Tannen, comes on out of the building and turns on the king and rescues everyone. But how does he do his rescue? Oh, this is going to be a great rescue here, folks. So once again, we do nothing to the droid general, and we do not end up taking the current king and capturing him either. And we kind of just let the droids do whatever? And so that means our General Tannen goes off into hiding too? Heck, because they did nothing to the droid general, or right there, that ends up requiring Ahsoka to have to actually save General Tannen in the end, revealing Jedi involvement. And then the ending of this one, we get this ominous ending with Ahsoka talking to the council, the real fight is about to begin, which will be our last episode, of course. So this one here, this episode, I enjoyed this more than the second one, actually. But, oh man, I was just thinking that this episode could be so much more than it was. There were some great discussions in it that I loved between some of the characters, but there was this two-dimensionality that didn't really get into the depths and complexities of the situation that I would have liked to have seen. Ah well, c'est la vie. So on to the finale, and this is tipping points. So off the bat, we've got these big holograms being put out where we're using the X-King to go talk to people. We've been using them before to have Steela talk to people too. And I gotta say, I love how the droids just seem to keep letting the big holograms speak all the way until they're finished. I don't know, I think I'd destroy them. But hey, as we established at the beginning of the first episode of this, the droids are pretty dumb. Now we head on over to the rebels who are up over in the Highlands. And this time around, now that we're up here into the 4th episode, Ahsoka no longer seems all that jealous when she went ahead and saw Steela kiss Lux. She seems to have accepted her position as a friend and was able to genuinely be happy for him, which was nice. I don't think we got quite as much of that character development and went quite as deep into it as I would have liked, but back to a problem with time. There's just too much to do in all of these episodes to really dig deeper there. But we still got that arc. You just get to read between the lines of it to go ahead and catch the rest of it. And now we're going to have this big battle coming up to the Highlands outside the city. So the good old droid army is going to be heading out there, and then we barely have any people. But we should be able to go ahead and win this, even so, just because we're awesome that way. But there are these new droid ships with super shields on them. No! There's got to be some kind of secret super weapon coming up that we didn't know of before. And those ships, well, they single-handedly turn the tide of battle, and so now we're losing. And so now we run into an interesting conflict again. So the Jedi aren't going to get involved because they consider this whole thing to be an internal conflict, and essentially they end up telling Ahsoka to get the heck out if it looks like the rebels are going to lose. And after that communication ends, Anakin and Obi-Wan debate a little bit. And you can guess on which side of the argument each one of them are on. Anakin, of course, for, hey, we gotta do something. Obi-Wan saying, hey, no. Well, guess what? Sure, we'll relocate the survivors. And Anakin like, no. Before they lose, let's actually go ahead and help them win. And then there's the whole argument about, well, we might as well do it because they already know the Jedi are involved anyway, so what does it hurt? To which Obi-Wan had an intriguing response about how he doesn't disagree, but sending in Republic gunships defeats their purpose. Their whole point about why they're involved, and so they've got to go ahead and stick to the intention they had at the beginning, and not just go ahead and change it part way through. Oof. Yeah, and that's a tricky one right there. To be that committed to the intent you had at the beginning, even when there are lives at stake, even when the war as a whole would be much benefited. By the way, this goes back to your disagreement between, say, people like Tarkin and the Jedi as far as how you conduct a war, right? Do you do what's going to do the best job of actually winning it? Or do you go ahead and be the Jedi and try to be more committed to your ethics and your morals? Well, the two of them were able to find, shall we say, a compromise solution. So we don't have the Jedi get super directly involved, but we do have them pay for a whole bunch of really nice missiles from Hondo, who will then deliver them over to the rebels. He gets those missiles to them, and it ends up, of course, turning the tide of the war. And hey, those missiles, boom, they're taking down these ships easy peasy. And we have a couple more of the rebels die. Another one we kind of knew gets killed when the droids attack the nest to go ahead and get the X-King. And then we lead all the way up. We're almost done. And Saw takes out the very last ship. And, well, things are a little tragic here because it crashes into where Steela and the X-King happen to be standing up on the cliffside. No way he could have known that was going to happen, of course. And over the edge Steela goes, but she's able to hang on. And sadly, nobody thinks to bring one of those flying creatures over to go save her. That would have been a good call, I think. But Lux somehow gets over to Steela long before Ahsoka, even though they were in the same spot before. It's like, Ahsoka, you're a Jedi, come on now. You gotta get out of being stunned faster than that. You're being shown up by a normal human. Yeah, clearly she got stunned worse by the crash of that ship right there. So, because of all this, Ahsoka heads on over there, and then has to rescue Lux, and then stays to go ahead and rescue Steela and is starting to raise her, but the downship apparently has a cannon become active, and it shoots Ahsoka in her back, in her shoulder, it seems. And, well, of course that means Ahsoka is no longer able to hold Steela up, and she falls to her death. Yeah. So, I guess in the end I was right that Steela did end up dying, but not for the compelling story reason that I proposed. Instead, it was more for a cost of war example. And I suppose also so Ahsoka can have some real guilt to live with. And hopefully that's going to come up later. I don't know if it really will or not, but I'm hoping it does, because that feels like part of the point of Steela's death. Okay, so this is pretty much our ending. So the Separatists go ahead and choose to pull out. Because, hey, they're not in for a prolonged war here. They got enough other wars. Who cares about this spot? And just for good measure, let's kill that ex-king. We get this big celebration ending. And it's not a full celebration because we also have Steela's dead body draped in a white cloth over there. Although I will also say the crowd at the end of this episode finally really gave me a little bit of that feel of size of the city that I've been looking for so long and just hadn't been there. Oh, and hey, apparently Lux is going to go ahead and become senator for the planet, take in his mother's footsteps. And that should be a senator in the Republic, we shall note. Now, this was a good episode. It was a satisfying ending to an arc that I felt could have been so much more than it was. But it was still, hey, beginning of season 5 here, fun little arc. Some enjoyable stuff. We got to see some good debates on philosophy. We saw the Jedi bend their ethics and their own rules and go a little further than before, and yet still hold certain lines as to where they weren't willing to keep bending them. We got to see more of Lux, which I was definitely hoping to see some more there. And I suppose maybe we'll see some more of him later. I mean, now he's single again, I suppose. So, hey, Ahsoka, you've got a chance once more, huh? I'm not sure if we'll go ahead and see more of that at this point. I mean, he's now a senator over in the Republic, so we should be able to potentially see Lux on multiple occasions, just because he'll be on Coruscant, though. That could be interesting. We also got to meet Saw Gerrera for the first time. Whether he'll pop up later in the show or not, I have no idea. Clearly, he is important within the course of the rebellion, given what I know from Rogue One, but I don't know if he pops up more in this one. Maybe he'll pop up in Star Wars Rebels. Could be interesting. I look forward to potentially seeing more of him. And I'm going to miss Steela. I expected her to die, admittedly for different reasons than she did, but dang. Was an interesting character. So yeah, this was a good arc. It was a good start to season 5, and hey, if the season can keep this up at this level, it will be doing quite well. And we'll see more of what we're in for season 5 next week. And until then, I've got to ask the usual, what about you? Did you like this opening arc? Who's your favorite of the characters over on Onderon? Is it, say, Steela, Saw, Lux, General Tandon, maybe the ex-king, or maybe somebody else entirely? Let me know down below in the comments. And thanks for watching. If you liked the video, do the usual. Give it a like, share it with other people, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll see you back here tomorrow for another new episode of Freeform Disney. Have a magical day, and may the Force be with you always.